This podcast is brought to you by Connect First Credit Union. Today we have a really great show. You know, for years and years and years, we've been talking about the need for Alberta to become more tech ready, to become more of a tech incubator of great businesses for our future. We know technology is going to be an incredibly important sector for future job creation, for certainly in this decade that we're now in. It is the digital decade in many respects. And on top of that, you know, the government of Alberta actually went as far as saying that financial services is another area, and fintechs in particular, are an area that we're going to be focusing on in this province to build a really an ecosystem to support those businesses in the decade ahead as we continue to transform and transition in this economy. Now, it isn't for the faint of heart to be in this business. It's a challenging industry. It's certainly very competitive, but it's also very inspirational. And I take that to heart where we sit at Connect First Credit Union. You know, we're an organization that is aspiring to reinvent what credit unions look like, how they perform, how they do business, how they create incredible, extraordinary experiences for our members. And we're on that mission. And we just know that the fintechs, the financial services companies of the future are going to be very, very important on our path as we learn to partner with them, work differently with them so that we can always bring the best services, the best of everything to our membership. And so I have to say, I'm really, really excited today to have our guest, Nick Beique. He's the founder, the CEO of a great company here in Calgary called Helcim. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for doing this.
Well, I'm more than honored to have you. You've done some amazing things, and you were a little bit of a trailblazer when it comes to financial services and fintechs in this city. So tell us, let's start with you, Nick. Who are you? Where'd you grow up? How'd you get here?
All right. The best way to say is I'm a Texas French Canadian. So I was born in Texas. When I was 1, I moved to Montreal. So that's where grew up. So French is my first language, and I moved to Calgary when I was 12. And Calgary is very much home now. I dream in English. I want to go nowhere else but build out in this city. I really love this city.
And that's so awesome. You know, first of all, how old were you when you started dreaming in English and transitioning from French?
It took about 6 months. When I moved here, I memorized phonetically a few English sentences, like I do not speak this language and things like that, right? To get around. And something, I mean, at that age, you can kind of pick up things quickly like that. And something just switched, and all of a sudden, English was the main one. So
12 years old is a pretty hard age to pick up and leave your friends in Montreal and come to Calgary. What was that experience like for you?
Well, it's funny because Calgary probably in 96 was much more cowboy in a sense of it really leaned into that Western kind of frontier. But it just felt so much like home. Like it was hard to leave family behind, but it felt like we moved to the west, to the frontier, and we were like building something new.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people feel like that when they come here.
Yeah.
And I think as a kid, it just became an adventure and it became fun. So
that's cool. And well, talking about building something. So tell us, what inspired you to start your business? Like how did you get here?
So my first business when I was 15 years old was web design. So, in the 90s, you're young kid, computers, and that's kind of how you get. A lot of people kind of started that way, and we were building these e-commerce websites before there was shopping carts that you could just kind of download and they work for you. We were building them from scratch, and we realized that there was a big pain point in setting up payments. There was kind of like one bank in Canada that would do it, and they weren't super friendly in getting you approved. So we started going, hey, maybe there's an opportunity there. So I started this business when I was 23. So we were really young. We didn't quite know what we were doing. A lot of running in the dark. And it took 2 years just to convince a bank to say yes to us.
Wow.
And even then, I don't know why they said yes. And even from there, it took a while to really kind of figure out who we were, what made us as business people, but who we were in the industry. And I think this company has really found its groove in about 6-ish years ago.
Okay.
So we went from 2 people and now we're 95, and we went from a few clients to now thousands upon thousands. But I think when you start a company at that age, you don't have experience, you don't have connections, you don't have money, but you have time.
Right.
And that's the one thing you can kind of lean in and try to figure it out. And that's what we did.
Which is a very valuable resource, obviously, time. Tell our audience a little bit about your business now.
Sure. So Helcim is a payments company. So in a nutshell, we allow small businesses of all kinds, anything from a chiropractor to a wholesaler, a dentist, a restaurant, and everything in between to accept payments. Our mission is to be the world's most loved payments company, which is a little bit of an oxymoron. When you think about certain industries, say like telcos and things like that, a lot of people don't have so much, such great feelings about those industries. And payments is a little bit like that. People really hate their payments company.
Totally.
And we really set out to make something that was different, which is, no, we're going to have amazing customer service. We're really going to lean into small business and try to do something different. And that was enough. Over time, we've added all this software and all these features and all this cool stuff that you can grow your business with. But it really started as let's just be the good guys in a not so great industry. And that was enough to differentiate ourselves.
And I love that story. As a kid growing up, some members of our audience might have heard me have my mom on the show not too long ago. And I remember, like, she used to consider sometimes, the folks that would be providing her the merchant terminals and everything else as not her favorite folks. That's probably the understatement of the century. So, like, how do you become the nice guy in this kind of tough industry?
A lot of people say they care about small business, but so little companies actually act that way.
Yeah.
It starts with the basics. Don't have contracts, don't have cancellation fees, have actual customer service, not just a chat room. Or we invest heavily into our customer service. I want to say they're the best paid customer service in the industry. But I think a lot of times at companies, people look at customer service and they see it as kind of like the lowest hanging employee kind of thing, right? And we don't look at it that way at all. They are the touch point with our customer every single day. Like, they should be rock stars. So we treat them like that.
Right on.
So I think it starts with basic stuff like that. But in the end, it really comes down to, like, you got to live and breathe it. You can say all those things, but like every day you're going to be faced with challenges. It's easy to say it, on a poster, on an advertising campaign. But when you're faced with that decision, going like, this is going to impact our bottom line short term. And, should we do this or not? And going like, what's our mission? Do we actually believe in it? What's the brand promise we've made to our customers? And are we going to honor that? And then you have to keep making those hard decisions.
Yeah, right on. Let's talk about some of those hard decisions. So somewhere along the way, you decided to make a go of this, and you've built a business that's now doing business all over North America, I understand, and it's really taken off. But in the early days, there must have been some challenging moments where you said, why don't I just go get a paycheck and stop putting these hours in, probably not paid, to build this. What kept you going? What made you take that risk as a person, as a human being?
I think that, I've always had a problem with authority, which I think is a little bit ironic that I went into fintech, because you really have to, we've had to convince a lot of big bank partners and credit card companies, things like that, hey, we're not cowboys. We're going to treat this seriously, security, anything like that. But I always had good relations with my teachers, but I definitely, I was skipping class all the time. I was building businesses on the side. Even, in high school, I moved all my classes in the morning so that I could work at Memory Express, which is a local computer store, in the afternoons. And I just kind of did it my way. So I don't think I would have ever been able to work for somebody. You hear that sometimes with entrepreneurs where it's not a choice. I know that sounds silly, but it's like, I have to figure out a way to build a business because there's no escape pod.
Right
like
on.
It's just build the parachute on the way down, because if not, you're hitting the ground hard. So,
well, and you chose to start it here in Alberta, and the reason that's notable is you started quite a few years ago. We're starting to see a little bit of a ecosystem around technology and financial services companies really start to take off here. But you were like a pioneer, truly. Why did you choose here, for starters? And secondly, what would you say about the environment in Alberta to be building a business like yours?
I wish I had an answer in terms of Alberta was the intersection of this and that, but I mean, it's home. I really love Calgary. It's very much home. It's an amazing city. I think every time summer comes around, you're reminded of that.
Yeah.
But over time, I've come to realize that it's also a very special place. I mean, if you think about Calgary, we've got 1.4 million people. You've got amazing universities, one of the youngest cities, both in terms of its actual, corporation age, but in terms of its population. But the cost of living is still very affordable. And there's this kind of this frontier, not to lean into the the cowboy thing. But in terms of like, if you were to like build a colony on Mars, down in the future, and it were to grow, Calgary would kind of look that way because it's just a bunch of people coming to a new place. There's not that much like generational wealth or anything like that. Everybody's kind of like net new and going, let's just build something. And I don't think there's that many places in the world left where it feels like fresh and you can do anything. Like even growing up in Montreal, it's old generational wealth and it's pretty entrenched and it's a lot more about who you know and things like that. And Calgary doesn't feel that way. There's this underdog mentality, I think, that comes from, being an entrepreneur and just being in tech in Alberta in the first place. And you just want to prove everybody wrong that like, hey, we can build something really cool and big here. Yeah. And I think our goal is to be that kind of anchor tenant of the tech space. Like people think about like, what's in Calgary? Oh, Helcim is in Calgary.
Right on.
That's the goal.
And I love it. So you have customers all over the place. Coming from Calgary, is it a strength? It's strength, or does that ever come up even?
We launched in the US a few years back, and we were worried at the time. We're like, it's super competitive, it's saturated. Are they going to want to do business with a Canuck? And from an industry standpoint, it turns out that like there's definitely a thirst for transparency and honesty in this industry. So we were well received, but we haven't had any pushback. And I think it's, you talk to our customer service team for the first 10 seconds and you're like, okay, I'm in good hands. I don't care where you're located. You're just being really great. We used to, I think, that kind of small business bolstering. You're like, oh, well, we also have a, Seattle office, and you don't quite know how to handle that. And now we're just like proudly Calgarian.
Oh, cool. That's cool. And that helps all the other businesses that are trying to build from here too, right? When we see success stories like yours of businesses that are building something special and they're getting the word out here that, it's not just all, cowboys in Calgary. This is actually a place that's becoming a hub for leading businesses. Now, how many people do you employ now?
95.
95.
So we're almost at 100.
That's awesome. So what about getting talent in this market? So one thing I hear often from entrepreneurs in Calgary is there's a perception that talent is a constraint. What's your experience been?
So it is, but to give a little context there, so a lot of tech companies are venture-backed, right? So you have like, venture capital, you have lots of money being injected, and it's all about speed. So they're like, grow now, grow fast, grow yesterday.
Yeah.
And so their only path forward, because the capital demands it, is to hire the most senior people they can so they can hit the ground running. And that's fine. That's, that works, right? But then you hear the headlines much more recently with all the big investments is, we're running out of senior tech developers, right? So we've never been that company. We're still bootstrapped. We never could afford those, senior programmers in the first place. So we never bothered. So what we did instead, what we could afford was that fresh grad out of state that nobody was giving a shot to, take them on, grow them. And we've never looked back. So we do something what we like to call bottom-up hiring, which is essentially overwhelmingly the majority of our hires are fresh grads, or this is their new career, things like that. And so we don't have that same problem. What was a weakness actually turns out to be a strength with everybody fighting for talent. Yeah. And I think people really, it builds a lot of loyalty because people appreciate that we've invested into them.
You gave them a chance when others wouldn't, right? And
exactly. Right on. And now we've got this organization where I think a lot of times if you drop junior people into a team, they're like, I got to train these kids essentially. And for us, it's like, well, no, that's what happened to me like just 8 months ago. Of course, I'm going to carry the torch and do it. So we've really built an organization that's all about passing the torch on to the next generation and building them up.
Right on. Independent business, small business, mid-sized business, so important to the growth of this province and this economic transition that we are going through, right? Like, the Calgary of 25 years ago when you moved here, it's not the same Calgary that it is today. We've all seen it transform, really. Energy is still important. It's not what it was. So we're seeing, more business creation. It's very exciting. Share from your perspective, like what are some of the ingredients a business needs to be successful in this environment today?
That's a big question. I think Calgary still has this amazing, the biggest small town. Yeah. And I think that when you grow up at first, you're like, it doesn't sound as cool, right? You think you have dreams of, I'll move to New York City or things like that. But you realize that's actually a huge advantage. It's kind of like 2 degrees of connection. It doesn't take that much to get to the right person very quickly. And also because not just in the tech industry, but the entire province has this kind of, we can prove to the world that we can build something here.
Right on.
So, to answer your question, I think relationships are still so important. And Calgary is a place where you can make those relationships really easily. And people are actually going to encourage you. Like it's so amazing to see how easily doors open in Calgary. Like I think it would shock people from other cities just how easy it is to get an introduction to somebody, and somebody that could be extremely wealthy or successful. It doesn't matter. The door just kind of opens. And so if you're starting a business in Calgary, I think that that's actually a really strong advantage in Alberta in general, right? And I think people shouldn't overlook. It's just like you can, if you want to build a business in construction or healthcare or anything like that, and you need to know the right people to get your first client or whatever is the case, like you can lean into that biggest small town and find the right person very quickly.
Yeah, right on. And I agree with that, by the way. I think that makes it a very unique environment. Now, having said that, we've just recently, not to make this about Connect First, but we recently set up a line of business focused on independent business because we think the financial institutions haven't done a good enough job yet to support entrepreneurs, business owners as they're trying to grow and build their businesses. What was your experience when you were, trying to get a banking relationship? I think you kind of hinted earlier it wasn't so smooth.
No, it wasn't. We almost gave up after 2 years of looking. I mean, ironically, we went to every Canadian bank, and I mean, we're young and, looked like punks and, at that age, right? And they just weren't interested. No doors were opening. It was pretty kind of monopolistic. And it was actually an American bank that in the end became our first relationship, where they were coming to Canada. They had heard about, we were more in the e-commerce payment space. And they had heard about us, that we were trying to find, somebody to open the doors. Because when you're in payments, you need a bank to let you in to talk to Visa, MasterCard, and all this. There's no way around it, right? And finally they said, we've heard about you guys and we're excited. Would you like to partner? And we'll come up with some. And we're like, yes, trying to keep a straight face.
Right
and from there, we've been able to build more banking relationships. But I think that there's a little bit of a, not a sadness, but it's unfortunate that it took an American bank to open a door for us in Canada. And I think a lot of fintechs still struggle with that, where you have a banking industry. I'm talking about the big five, right? That just, they resist open banking. Yeah. There's a lot of resistance to, I think it stems from protectionism of their business model.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the story behind.
I totally understand what you're saying. And it's one of the challenges that we see from a credit union perspective too. We kind of have an oligopoly in the country, right?
Right.
But the opportunity is to be different. And and you're certainly doing that. And you're building quite a brand, I think, in terms of creating a differentiated experience, which is pretty awesome.
Thank you.
And you've inspired us, which is one of the reasons we wanted to have you on the show too. Payment modernization's coming to Canada. So there's a lot of change coming to the industry. Like, what would be some of the big things that you're looking into the future with excitement, with trepidation in terms of the changes coming to our system here?
I think there's two big things on the horizon. I think that the real-time rails, and I know some people are just going to fall asleep immediately as I say that, but essentially what it is, just to give some context, is that as you move money between bank accounts, there's a delay now, right? There's always a few-day delay, and real-time rails are going to modernize the system where all of a sudden, that's always been the big advantage of credit cards, that it's in real time, and the bank accounts have not, and they're about to become in the coming years. And I think that's going to open up a wide range of opportunities. The other thing, I'm not somebody that's cryptocurrencies are immediately a future. I think they have a whole lot of challenges, but I think that when the Central Bank of Canada decides to do their own kind of native digital currency, I think that it's going to be a whole new world. They're teasing about it. It's probably a decade out, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
I would agree with you on that. Payments are going to be a big industry of change for the next few years. So being a more nimble business that's used to change, hopefully will put you at a big advantage. I imagine you think so.
Yeah, I think that right now, the main problem that people are coming to us to solve is to accept credit card payments. But we very much see ourselves as a payments company in general and an enabler of small business. So we're going to, as things change, we're going to adapt, and we know we can adapt quickly.
So one of the inspirations behind this show initially was we wanted to inspire more entrepreneurs, more other business leaders, business owners to reach for the stars, really. And Any advice you would share with those members of our audience who are thinking about getting into business, thinking about financial services in general, like where it's going, and doing it from here?
Yeah, I think that whenever you're starting a business, I think people are sometimes bad at estimated risks.
Yeah.
So they always think that like the risk is bigger, and you really have to lean back. It's like, what's the worst scenario that happens, right? Like, okay, it fails. Okay, financially, like obviously you have to make sure you're in a position where you can feed your family and all that. But what's the real risk, especially to young people when they're first starting a new business? It's kind of like, if you're in your 20s, your 30s, and even your 40s, 50s, it doesn't matter, right? I think people think that there's too much risk with starting a business. It's a lot of hard work. It takes an immense amount of perseverance sometimes to get through the nights. But I would say, to anyone who's thinking like, I've been wanting to do it, but maybe next year, it's just start now.
Right on. Don't wait.
Don't wait.
And I think that is great advice, because I think, to your point, so many entrepreneurs I've met over the years tell me things like, I wish I'd done this 10 years ago instead of right on. And it's all that opportunity that's missed along the way, which is true. So how about when you look at Alberta and, again, we're going through this decade of challenge. This is my home. It's your home. It's our home. We're trying to build a better, brighter future. What do you see for the next decade happening in this province?
I'm excited. I'm super biased, but I'm very excited.
So am I. That's okay.
I think that right now we're a little late to the party in terms of tech, but I think the past even just 2 years, the spotlight has finally kind of shown on it. And I think what's going to happen is that right now we're seeing tech as like one industry, and it's not.
Right.
That's the thing. So like you said, there's fintech, there's agri-tech, there's everything tech. So tech is, I think what's going to happen, if fast forward to 5 years from now, we won't be talking about the tech industry. We'll be talking about all the different industries that are now tech.
Yeah.
Because it's all about just taking technology and using it to find more efficiencies and kind of propel your business forward, making it easier for customers and things like that. So I think that we're going to look at it and just see all the same industries that make our province great. So like energy and agriculture and tourism and everything like that, but it'll just be tech enhanced.
Yeah.
And we won't think of it like, oh, look at the tech industry. It's like, no, look at all Alberta industries. I think that's what's going to happen.
That's very cool. And last question I have for you is, we're aspiring to be a financial institution that really steps up and stands out in support of entrepreneurs and business owners. Any advice for us?
I have a bias because I love credit unions. I think that they serve a spot in the community that the big banks keep failing at.
Yeah.
I'd have 2 pieces of advice. I would say, first of all, do what doesn't scale, because you're in a position to do that and the big banks can't, right? So create these super special relationships with your customers where your customers can just call their banker and then you can bring technology into it. Like, why can't I call my banker on my app and do a video chat and be like, hey, I was thinking about doing that or doing a new location. Could you guys help? And things like that. But do what doesn't scale, because you guys are in a position to do that, to have those special relationships. And then the second piece would be, obviously I'm biased towards technology, but technology is invisible when it's done well, and it's really apparent when it's not.
Yeah.
So anything that's paperwork, anything that requires the customer to come in, anything that's manual,
right on,
make it disappear.
Yeah.
I'll put a shameless plug in there, which is like, you could always partner with great companies like Helcim to offer payments to customers. But I think the biggest advice is do something that doesn't scale. Because that's what people want. They want to feel like they matter, especially in the small business space, because they really do.
Love it. So, Nick, I can't thank you enough for joining us on our show. I think you're a great example of the kinds of businesses that are going to be building our future in our province in the decade ahead. I'm hearing your name pop up more and more in the circles around the business community here in Calgary. You're clearly making waves. We're honored to have you here. Thank you, Nick.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for doing this. It's important.
Next steps. So, Nick, you've been a great guest, and I can't thank you enough for joining us. What a fun conversation, but it's so inspiring to see someone who's really done it, who's building a successful business, almost 100 people working in his business already. And he's built that from scratch, built it on, I loved his comment about the fact that, when you're starting a business, what you don't have often is money, but what you have is time. And when you have time, you can solve problems. And certainly you saw his commitment to doing that. And he also inspired me when he was talking about kind of what sets Calgary and Alberta a little bit apart, where there's still this new frontier mentality in the city. And we see it every day. people who are solving problems, whether it's in the energy industry and how to become more carbon neutral, whether it's in the technology industries where we're seeing new businesses emerge that are truly solving problems for industries, and including Nick, who has gone into an industry which over the last couple decades hadn't had a great reputation, finding a way to really come out as a white knight in that industry to support entrepreneurs in their growth and providing payment services, which is so awesome. I loved his advice, and certainly we're taking it to heart at Connect First when we're thinking about how we go deeper in supporting our members with great advice and having great relationships with them. His quote was, do what doesn't scale. I love that comment, which is exactly what we want to do. And it is, quite frankly, exactly the opposite of what we're seeing other financial institutions in this province do, which quite frankly, I just love it. And, making sure our processes are tech-enabled, which is also what we're doing. We're investing heavily in the technology platform so that we can ultimately provide our members with a really seamless experience. So with that, I've taken away a great inspiration from Nick. Really loved having him here. And with that, if you liked what you heard today, share it with your network. Be sure to subscribe. And thank you for listening. We're going to see you next time on What's Next Alberta.